if it were me, I would talk about Locke, and I'd talk about Bentham as two good examples. I would be wary of borrowing my examples exactly because I don't know how many people are going to view this video. But if it transpires that a lot of you are viewing this and you're all using the same examples, then you may be accused of potential cheating in this competition, which is the last thing you want. So feel free to borrow elements, borrow some examples, some structure. But if you copy this exactly, then I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's too risky, too dangerous, and you actually might be instantly disqualified. So this is just my idea, but there's obviously no right answer. This is just a suggested type of structure. And feel, a structure doesn't have to be rigid. We often get told in our exams and by our teachers that to structure an exam this way, it's important that you have a structure, but it should depend on the question. So that's why I'd be wary of using an A-level structure or a GCSE structure for a question like this. Be wary that a structure is a guide, and a good structure is one that is that is willing to bend itself towards the specific question that you're dealing with at the time. So I'd talk about Locke and Bentham. I'd talk about Locke in the sense of a mandate derives from a contract. And I'd talk about Bentham in the sense that mandate derives from individual liberties, protection of individual liberties, and technocratic government, as well as unity. Again, going back to 1848, another example, one thing I mentioned is that it should be stable and unified. So we're already getting quite busy, and hopefully these should all simply be reminders of things we've already talked about. Okay, contemporary theory on mandates. Now this was the last session. Critiquing mandates. What's wrong with the assumption of what a mandate actually is? Let's make this a little bit bigger. Make ourselves more space. There we go. Issues of a mandate. There's a host of things you can say here. Issues of the concept. Just to give you some examples, coalitions. Is there no popular mandate? Should a mandate be specific? Can an election only secure short-term mandates? Let's make, again, we're running out of room. This is good though. We're getting lots of information down, lots of ideas. Can an election only secure a short-term mandate? Should we reject mandate instead of, and instead we should favour behavioural mandates rather than electoral? Again, go back to the previous session if you need a reminder of what I mean by this. We really are running out of room, so I'm going to make this a bit smaller. Mandates conferred depends on the party. So behavioural mandate of electoral. So this is the idea that mandate is reaffirmed. It's conferred at the outset by an election, but it's continually reaffirmed and it can potentially be withdrawn by the people. A mandate also is conferred depends on the party. How far they're unified versus how far is it quite an extreme point of view. How representative is it of the entire population rather than just those who voted for it? Remember, we have this idea of margins. If an electorate party may simply have a 50.1% margin, for instance. And we also have this idea of deliberative democracy. This is an idea I'm quite sympathetic towards. This idea that actually the best a mandate is conferred to sorry, a mandate is not conferred, rather a party is conferred. We put our trust in the individuals we elect to then decide and dispute and negotiate and come up themselves with specific policy arrangements. Our policy preference isn't specific. Our mandate, we don't have a mandate because we're not arguing a specific view. We're arguing in favour of a party or a person to then go forth and come up with their solutions for politics and for policy making. It's the system we're subscribing to, not the policies. Hopefully that's clear. But anyway, lots to draw from there. So what are we left with? So, introduction paragraph, historical examples 1 or 2 paragraphs, political theory 1 or 2 paragraphs, contemporary theories and mandates 1 or 2 paragraphs, conclusion 1 paragraph. So all in all, we have anywhere between 5 and 8 paragraphs. For 2,000 words, perfect. Paragraphs shouldn't be too long. They shouldn't be unwieldy. They shouldn't run away from you. But actually, while we're there, before we come back to overall arguments and sort of wrap everything up, quick word on structuring and style and how to write this essay, how to structure each paragraph. There's no point in me telling you how to write each paragraph. It depends on your style. It depends on what you're trying to say, and it will sound silly. It will sound robotic if you try and structure them all the same way. But when it comes to writing, there's a couple of elements: there's style, language, and articulation, and there's argumentation and analysis. So we'll start with style. Just a few points to consider and remember. First is brevity. It's important to be clear. There's no point in writing using technical, complicated language, because the likelihood is you probably don't know what it means. If you're not quite sure, don't bother. And also, it's easier to read simpler words, and your argument is more persuasive and it's more decisive. Don't forget, as Spencer said, this is not an overview. This is not a chapter in a book. This is meant to be a direct argument. Your goal is to persuade the examiner of your view, not to inform them of some general information on the period and on the topic. Try and keep away from long sentences. They become unwieldy, again, difficult to get your point across. Try, if you can, vary sentence length, though. Keep the essay engaging. It shouldn't be monotonous. This is where editing comes in. Make sure to spend a good amount of time editing at the end of the essay. It's difficult to tell if your essay is getting boring or unclear as you're writing it, because you're focusing on the content, not necessarily the way it's written. So really take time to edit, make sure it sounds fluid and clear and interesting.